Today's material is a passionate script analyzing the UK government's proposed Watch This Space consultation and its potential to mandate algorithmic prominence for traditional public service media over independent digital creators. Okay, so what I really like about this piece is the raw urgency it brings right from the jump.
Oh yeah, it really grabs you.
It does, right? Like, they use this incredibly compelling historical framing where they compare the modern internet to, 17th century pamphleteers.
Yes, the guy cranking the wooden press.
Exactly. Just wildly cranking the press, trying to get the news out before the royal guards show up to smash it. And they use that to parallel this 20th century broadcast monopoly trying to reassert control.
It's a fantastic analogy. I mean, it perfectly establishes this really high-stakes environment for the reader.
It really sets the tone.
It does. But, to maximize the material's impact, we really need to pivot quickly to the constructive critique here.
Right. Yeah, let's get into it. So, a key theme running through this material seems to be the burden of bureaucratic regulation, but let's look at how that's presented structurally.
Integrating a live, chronological reading of a government survey severely interrupts the narrative momentum of the argument.
Oh, man, it really does.
It's just, the weakness here is that the listener is essentially dragged through these incredibly tedious administrative survey mechanics.
Step by step.
Exactly, step by step. I mean, suddenly we're listening to the author filling out demographic checkboxes.
Yeah. Like, wait, why am I hearing about this?
Right. And then there are disclaimers about the Equality Act of 2010 being read aloud, and these random tangents about the 2034 terrestrial TV switch-off.
It's just a lot of noise.
It is. This structural choice completely diffuses the urgency they built up with that pamphleteer opening. It just scatters the core theses about algorithmic manipulation to the wind.
Yeah. You completely lose the thread of the argument. It's like a lawyer reading an entire terms of service contract to a jury, instead of just pointing to the one clause that breaks the law.
That's clearly laid out. I wonder, though, if we've considered how grouping these points by threat level might keep the audience on the edge of their seats.
Oh, that's a really interesting way to approach it. Like ditching the chronological order completely.
Exactly. The suggestion here is to fundamentally reorganize the script to lead with a synthesized, overarching thesis.
So they drive the narrative, not the survey.
Right. They need to extract only the most critical policy threats from the survey and use those as supporting evidence. Never use the survey itself as the structural spine of the piece.
Yeah, I mean, instead of reading the DCMS survey questions in numerical order, which is just, painfully dry.
So dry.
They could group the policy points thematically. Like, I noticed there are these specific questions buried in there regarding prominence during periods of heightened vulnerability.
Yes, the crisis protocols.
Wait. They should extract those specific high-level threats and juxtapose them directly with the threat to independent media reach.
Exactly. If you build it by threat level, you create an escalation. You start with the quiet, algorithmic stuff, and you end with the state taking control during social unrest.
It becomes a story then, rather than a form.
Exactly. And, once we synthesize that evidence, we really have to look closely at the language carrying.
Yeah, let's look closely at the section discussing the government ministers.
Relying heavily on highly charged, hyperbolic language diminishes the credibility of the underlying policy analysis.
It can definitely be distracting.
It is. The weakness in this section is the constant use of these ad hominem attacks. I mean, referring to MPs as plebs or Reddit mods.
The Reddit mods line was pretty funny, though.
It's funny, sure, but then labeling the proposals as tyrannical or evil or literally calling things Nazi, it just overshadows the very real compelling points being made.
It's like the rhetoric drowns out the research.
Completely. They have great points about unfair market dynamics and state overreach, but the reader can't hear them over the shouting.
I can see what you're going for here. Let's see how we can strengthen this. But isn't there a risk that stripping away the anger ruins the author's authentic, rebellious brand?
I mean, I hear that, but there's a huge difference between a wildfire and a controlled burn.
Okay, a controlled burn. I like that.
Right? A wildfire of insults just gives the opposition an excuse to dismiss you as an angry internet troll, but a controlled burn of targeted, factual takedowns, that is far more devastating.
So how do they actually implement that controlled burn on the page?
The suggestion is to calibrate the rhetorical heat by letting the stark reality of the policy implications speak for themselves. You lean into analytical contrast rather than name-calling to establish authority.
Let the facts do the heavy lifting.
Exact. For example, instead of broadly calling the BBC evil, focus strictly on the economic disparity.
Oh, yeah, like the part where they talk about the BBC's funding model.
Yes, contrast their infinite bailout model and regulatory protection against the ragged free market where independent creators fail if they don't constantly produce engaging content.
That's a huge contrast. It's so much more effective than just saying they're bad.
Right. And you can do the same thing with the politician. Take Ian Murray's role. Frame his actions objectively. Let his actual proposal, which is to artificially boost metrics because traditional media is only reaching 43% of 16 to 24-year-olds. Let that highlight the absurdity of the government's stance.
It's like you don't need to call them names when the data itself shows how desperate the policy is.
Precisely. It reveals the incompetence purely through the facts.
Building on that point, refining the tone naturally allows the material to reach a much wider audience, which brings us to the actual scope of the argument.
Framing the issue strictly through a partisan, culture war lens needlessly limits the coalition of readers who would naturally support the core theses.
Yeah, the tent feels very small right now.
It really does. The weakness here is that by heavily anchoring the argument to these highly specific right-wing talk, the diversity complaints, two-tiered policing, the Southport incidents,
It kind of alienates anyone who isn't already on that exact political wavelength.
exactly. It alienates readers across the aisle who are actually equally threatened by the government stepping into private business algorithms.
Like, you want everyone who cares about digital freedom on your side for this.
Right. So the suggestion is to expand the argument's scope to demonstrate that state intervention in digital discoverability is a universal threat to all independent voice. You have to create a larger tent for the audience.
It's an infrastructure issue, not just a culture war issue.
Exact. And they actually have a great concrete example of this already in the text, but it's just a brief mention.
Oh, the canary?
Yes, the Canary. It's a left-wing outlet that's experiencing debanking and algorithmic suppression due to their foreign policy reporting.
That's a perfect counterweight.
They need to elevate that example. Use it as a central, highlighted pillar to prove that the government's desire to control the narrative impacts the entire spectrum of independent media, not just one side.
Because if it happens to them, it happens to everyone.
Is there a risk that focusing solely on the partisan grievances might overlook the broader digital rights issue at play here?
I completely agree. And honestly, the author inadvertently proves this is an industry-wide issue by highlighting YouTube's own back-end prompt to creators.
Oh, the Keep YouTube Yours thing?
Yeah, that prompt perfectly proves that this is a massive structural concern about creative freedom. The platform itself is fighting this, which appeals to literally everyone on the internet.
It totally neutralizes the partisan angle and just makes it about basic digital rights.
Okay, well, this has been an incredibly productive critique. Just to recap our three main takeaways for the author first. Synthesizing the survey to fix the structure. Don't let the government form dictate your narrative momentum.
Right, group it by threat level.
Exactly. Second, dialing down the hyperbole to elevate the actual policy threat. Swap out the insults for those sharp economic contrasts, like the infinite bailout versus the free market.
The controlled burn.
The controlled burn, yes. And third, broadening the scope to highlight cross-partisan digital rights by elevating examples like the canary to show this affects everyone.
We warmly invite the listener to implement these revisions and submit the material back for another critique. We'd love to see where it goes next.
Absolutely. Get those structural edits in, build that larger coalition, and let's read it again.